All right, we are back on another episode of Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Trevor Baru, Tommy Morris on the airwaves. What a crazy week, Tommy. We have Jovan Buha on the show last week. We could have used him this week after this crazy Donald Sterling drama.
Yeah, and I actually lost a bet to him. So tomorrow, when you look at my Facebook, because I know you check my Facebook every day, just like everyone else, my profile picture will be a Clippers picture.
Nice. I like to see that you're doing some side bets off the show. I'd appreciate if we do some more, on air bets, but I can't fault you for that.
Well, I didn't think of it until afterwards because I'm not a very quick thinker. So maybe just speed up the brain process, and then for next time I'll get that figured out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, on that note, we definitely are going to talk about Donald Sterling on our main topics today, as well as biggest disappointment and biggest surprise in the first round of the NBA playoffs. We talked about our predictions at the end of last week's episode. Actually, we did pretty well. I talked about how I thought the Nets had the best chance to upset the Heat, not the Pacers, and that's still on track. Close call, but it's still on track. You had the Blazers with the best chance to get out of the West as your pick, and I was a little surprised when you said that, but it's looking pretty good the way they played against the Rockets.
And that shot by Lillard has got to be the play of the playoffs so far, with .9 seconds fading away for three.
And Lillard's done that all year. I'm not surprised by that at all. He's got ice in his veins, and he's just it's unbelievable to think that the Nets traded basically the rights to Lillard for Gerald Wallace.
Yeah,
But
tough day at the office.
so we got that, and then we're gonna, we had the Floyd Mayweather fight last night. I think some boxing fans were a little disappointed once again. Starting to see that's more of a common feeling from boxing fans after each fight. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and then we got a fun little game we're gonna play this week called Would You Rather. Last week we played to the Unsportsmanlike Lounge Therapy Center, and this week we're playing Would You Rather. So we got that coming up as well.
And the NFL draft's coming up Thursday, so we got ourselves a pretty good guest, I would say.
Yeah, we got Cam Weiss, agent for Empire Athletes. He is the agent for Michael Sam. So we're excited to see where Michael falls in the draft on this coming weekend. So we'll talk to Cam a little bit about the process of how he got Michael as a client of his and what he's expecting come draft day.
Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do this. So first topic, we obviously got to talk about the Donald Sterling drama. Oh my God, I don't even know where to start, Tommy. You want to start with your thoughts because I have a lot to say and I want to hear you first before I go off.
I have a lot of problems with it. First of all, I have problems with what he said. I don't even need to mention that. There's no defending what he said. That was horrible. But I have a gigantic problem with this gotcha media culture that's now kind of sifting its way into sports. And while Donald Sterling probably did deserve what he got coming to him, I just feel like this is gonna head in a crazy spiraling terrible direction. We already kind of saw with Colin Kaepernick being falsely accused of something, and that may have cost him. And I think that's going to happen a lot more frequently now, and I really don't like it, and it really bothers me.
Yeah, Tommy, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's very dangerous what's going on, and we've seen this kind of emerge with Twitter and this instant news, instant opinion culture. And the problem, I think, is that now it's becoming one of those things where people in power that have to make a quick decision about something, start feeling the pressures of society, even when that person really hasn't had a right to defend themselves. And in the case of Donald Sterling, what he said was repulsive. There's no way to defend him as a person or with any of his comments. But let's take a step back and think about this for a second. I mean, he said this in the privacy of his own home. He was, we think, illegally recorded saying these things. Now there's starting to be some debate about whether or not he knew it was being recorded. But I read some interesting articles that I agree with about talking about, how many people have said stuff in their own homes that if they were recorded and if they were published across the web would be in a lot of trouble. And this isn't defending Donald Sterling by any means, but I think there's a lot of hypocrisy out there with the way people are so quick to jump on comments like this when they don't start thinking about the fact that there's a lot of things they've said in their life that if were ever published to the mass society, they'd be in a lot of trouble.
I'll go to the limit and say that I bet every single person, I don't care who you are, every single person in this world has said something that if it was recorded and shown to the wrong people, they would be in trouble. Every single person. Everyone. I can't believe that anyone has got a pristine enough track record so they never said anything that would ever offend anyone.
And Bomani Jones of ESPN made some really interesting points when he was on the Dan Le Batard show. He was talking about how he's annoyed because all these people are applauding him for writing this article about 10 years ago, calling out Donald Sterling for basically the piece of shit that he is. And it sickens him that all these people are applauding him now, saying, you were so right. How did you know all this stuff? When he was being sued for rental, he was discrimination for all his rental properties in LA. There's been multiple lawsuits against him. I mean, this is not new news whatsoever. It's just the fact that all these people find out about one time the way we're talking about it with this Twitter madness, and suddenly everyone is that moral person who is to stand up and say they know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's just ugly situation all the way around.
Also, still on the note of the Clippers, people have been talking about how Clippers are potentially America's team in the playoffs, this and that, and the biggest problem I have with that is if you're going to call the Clippers America's team, you need to realize that Donald Sterling is still making every penny off playoff games, off merchandise sales, off anything related to the Clippers. So I found it pretty dumbfounding how right after Adam Silver comes out and talks about how he's banning Sterling for life, that everyone's back on the Clippers bandwagon. I mean, this is not a simple case. He's going to go to court. There's going to be massive litigation. And some people are trying to say, it's cut and dry within the NBA Constitution, but I don't think this is that kind of clear case. And to say that the Clippers are America's team is ridiculous. It's not just, one night Adam Silver comes out and says he's banning Sterling for life, and now it's all good and fun. There's way more to this. Just people love hearing, he did the right thing, he said the right things. Let's move on to the next topic.
Well, and I think another thing that kind of gets lost in this too is, like you said, this is not a new thing for him. And it's almost. It is embarrassing for all the players because it's not like this kind of caught them off guard. It seemed like didn't really surprise any of them. And then it's kind of like, how could you play for a guy like this in the first place? How could you possibly sign a contract with this guy? I mean, granted, some guys are drafted onto the team, they had no choice. But if you're a free agent and you knew that was the case, how could you possibly play for someone like that? So it looks bad for literally everyone in the organization.
And we know there's definitely going to be more on this in the next coming weeks, but let's move on to the next topic, as we could literally talk about this for an entire show. But still on the topic of the NBA, when we actually talk about the play on the court rather than off the court, what do you think the biggest disappointments in the first round were, and your biggest surprises?
My biggest surprise by far was just how well the Mavericks played the Spurs. I thought the Spurs were going to have an easy time in round one. They've been able to handle the Mavericks pretty. I mean, they had some crazy streak of, I think it was like 11 games that they beat them in a row or something like that. Just something just insane. And they almost blew it. Today, the game 7, they steamrolled them, so it didn't really end up mattering. But yeah, it was shocking to me how terrible the Spurs played.
If we play the track back from last week of our predictions, we didn't even talk Mavericks Spurs because we thought it was such a sure thing. So we looked like idiots there.
Yeah.
I also thought the Bulls were going to put up a bigger fight, so I guess kind of my surprise. I can't really call the Bulls a disappointment without Derrick Rose, but I was pretty surprised at the way the Wizards handled the Bulls, and that John Wall, Bradley Beal backcourt looks pretty vicious, and they could give the Pacers some serious trouble in the second round. I could definitely see the Wizards upsetting the Pacers.
I don't even know who the Pacers are anymore.
We'll get to what we think's potentially happening with the Pacers a little bit later in the show, but they're self-destructing before our eyes, and I don't know if that falls on Frank Vogel or if it's the entire team, but there's something about Lance Stevens that just drives me crazy. He just seems like a cancer, and it's the more I watch him play, the more I've decided that he can't be on that team next year.
Yeah, it's a temper tantrum waiting to happen.
And then in the West, I think the biggest disappointment has got to be the Rockets. I know the Trailblazers played amazing. They deserve to move on. But the reason I say biggest disappointment for me is the Rockets is because they have this huge push last summer to acquire Dwight Howard. There's all this talk about championship contention. James Harden, Dwight Howard, Chandler Parsons, Jeremy Lin looked strong throughout the season. They finished with the 4 seed. And then the way they kind of went out, I just think even if the Blazers deserve to win that series, it's got to be a disappointment. Dwight Howard, he lost the first round last year. He makes all this drama and all this changing teams and everything, and he still can't get out of the first round. I think that's why it's got to be the biggest disappointment for me.
See, I don't know about that because I mean, the Blazers are really good. I mean, they have. I think the Blazers actually have a better team than the Rockets. So I can't. I can't be disappointed if I'm Houston.
But really LaMarcus Aldridge outplayed Dwight Howard in that series.
Well, he's also an all-star.
But Dwight Howard, the way Dwight Howard talked about championships and the amount of fuss that he put up in the last few years, he needs to play better, especially with Kevin McHale as his coach. At this point in his career, he's got to have better offensive moves. He's got to be able to command the respect of a team. And then, like, if you look at it right now, I mean, there's already issues with Dwight Howard and James Harden with who's the man on the team, who should have the ball in their hands. You could already see the problems forming.
Well, it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like it is. Dwight Howard is a very difficult person to be on the same team with. That's just going to be the case with him for the rest of his career. So it's, you know what you're buying when you get him. So you can't really be surprised.
Our third topic, Floyd Mayweather.
Oh,
victorious again. Still undefeated for his career, but it was a little tougher this time around. He suffered a big cut for the first time in his career. But boxing fans still didn't seem too enamored with the fight. Tommy, you've covered boxing for a little bit. What do you think is the biggest problem with boxing right now? And why is someone who's undefeated in his entire career not drawing the same attention he used to get?
Well, he's not the same fighter he used to be, and he's not fighting anyone. He's fighting guys like Maidana. Maidana's a good fighter, but he's not. He doesn't have the box office appeal that someone else would have, like a Pacquiao. I mean, the problem with boxing is there is no governing body. It's not like the NFL. It's not like UFC. It's not like NBA. There's no commissioner. You have 4 different quote-unquote world championship titles for each weight class. So, and there's 14 weight classes, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So, do the math on that. So, there's what is it, 56 different quote-unquote world champions walking around. So, you don't really know who's good. And nobody wants to lose a fight, so they're too afraid to actually fight anyone. So, you don't see the good fights being made because everyone's too scared to lose that. If you have one loss, people start to feel like their careers are tainted. You saw it with Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner lost a fight, and now he's freaking out that he's never going to be the same thing as Floyd Mayweather because he has a loss now. So it's just a mess all the way around.
I started to lose interest. I mean, I probably purchased every fight or watched every fight for like the last 4 or 5 years, the big welterweight fights, championship fights, until Timothy Bradley defeated Pacquiao. And that was the moment where I started to question why I was watching, because the entire fight, the announcers were talking about how he was winning. It seemed like Bradley was winning. And then when Pacquiao lost, I started questioning, you know what, I don't even understand what it means to win anymore. In every other sport I watch, I always know who's dominating, who's winning, But in boxing, it's just so unclear, it's so ambiguous that I started to just feel like, why do I want to waste my time and money watching something that I don't even understand when I think I understand it? So that, for me, was kind of the turning point. And, as crazy as it is, I think they should just change it to, you got to KO someone to win. If you think about the way... If you think about the way Floyd,
well, it used to be. Well, that's why they used to have 15 rounds. Now they changed it to 12 for championship fights because it was too dangerous.
If you think about the way,
there's another. There was another theory that came out, but the traditionalists won't allow it. Another problem with boxing is that the judges are standing right next to the ring, so they're eye level with the ground, which is not a very good angle if you're trying to judge. There was some talk of putting them kind of in like lifeguard type chairs, or like the chairs that tennis referees have, so they get a higher angle, but that'll never happen. So it's just there's so many things wrong with it, and there's not one person that oversees the whole thing, so there's no one to lead everyone in the right direction, and it's just going to continue to be like this until the sport eventually just kind of fades away.
All right, now moving on to our second part of the show. This is quickly becoming my favorite part of the show. Last week we played Visit the Therapist in the Unsportsmanlike Lounge. This week we got a little game called Would You Rather. Tommy, are you ready for Would You Rather?
I'm always ready for Would You Rather.
All right. Number 1, Tommy. This question comes from the Sharks' epic collapse to the Los Angeles Kings, where they lost 4 straight. last week. And the
Okay.
question is, would you rather be a fan of a team who chokes consistently or a team who never makes it to the playoffs in the first place? So you kind of are a fan of one of these teams in the Chargers.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I would rather be a fan of a team that chokes in the playoffs because you get the whole regular season of excitement. When you're following a team that's out of it, 2/3 or 2/3 of the way through the season or 3/4, whatever, you kind of miss out on part of the season. So I'd rather be my view as a fan, my like goal for my teams, and this might not be a high enough standard, is I want my teams to at least be relevant throughout the whole season so I can watch a full season of whatever sport it is. And that's all I expect out of them. I know that might not be enough for you, but that's what I'm thinking.
No, I think that's a fair statement, but I will say on the other side of things, it gets a little tough when your team has literally been having the same postseason collapses for 12 years. It starts to wear on you. The hair starts to become gray. You start to wonder if a few years are kind of just disappearing from your life. And for the Sharks, I can't say that I'm a good enough hockey fan to have had all those things happen to me. I wouldn't say that all the grays I currently have are because of the Sharks. But it starts to really take on a whole nother level when it's this many years in a row. At some point, you deserve a break. At some point, you need that 2010 or 2011 Mavericks championship to happen. You need that one little break, or you need to just see the team implode and start over. Kind of like the Phoenix Suns. It's sad that they never made it. It's sad that the Spurs basically stole that playoff round from them that one year where I think it was Amari stepped on the court and they lost it. But at some point, you got to rebuild or something because something's just not going right.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you're the first team like the playoffs, and you don't get that draft pick, and you're kind of in an awkward spot.
Our next would you rather? So this is the preface for this is that at the Toronto Raptors playoff game last week on Kiss Cam, they caught a gentleman going in for the kiss. He'd get completely denied on camera by whatever girl was sitting next to him. And this brings us to the question: if you're on Kiss Cam, Tommy, would you rather be caught getting denied, or would you rather be pressured into kissing someone next to you don't want to kiss? Tommy.
Yeah.
Did you stress out a little bit about that question? Do I need to repeat it?
Wait, did you ask me the question?
I did. I thought you were just stuck in thought trying to figure out what you wanted to say.
No, I thought you were explaining it still.
Oh, no. I'll ask it again.
Okay.
It seems like
all
you're
right,
sorry. I guess I'm boring you.
No. Well, you get to answer this one first because I answered the other one first. So you
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, fair enough. Well, I would I'd rather be pressured into kissing someone I didn't want to kiss as long as they were someone of the opposite sex, because I feel like that's it's more of something that's it's a little awkward in the moment, but it's more of a funny story after versus being denied on camera. That just puts you back 5 to 10 years,
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would have to answer this kind of like there's a caveat to it. Is there someone else I'm trying to impress in the arena? Because I don't want them to see it. If no one important is going to see me getting denied, I'll pick that.
Well, like we talked about with social media, everyone in the world's going to see it.
Yeah, then I'll agree with you. Then I'd rather kiss some female that I'd rather not kiss than yeah, I agree.
All right, our final question: You're an amazing basketball coach. You have the opportunity to coach either the New York Knicks or the Los Angeles Lakers. Which coast are you headed to?
This is a tough one, and you got to pick your poison here. Are you going to pick Kobe Bryant or are you going to pick Carmelo Anthony? And I think Kobe at this point in his career is not going to win a championship again, and he's only going to deter you from winning one. Carmelo, I don't think ever will win one. But I'm going to go with the Knicks because I think Carmelo has a better shot of getting his first one than Kobe does getting his next one. So that's where I'm going. I also think that the Lakers, now you're kind of you're fighting with the Clippers for LA. There's all this stuff going on there. And I would just rather be in New York, as crazy as that sounds.
I got to disagree with you because for two reasons. One, under no circumstances do I want to be, I know this is going to sound crazy, but to me, James Dolan is a far worse owner than Jim Buss. I think Jim Buss is misguided at times. I think James Dolan is completely delirious, and I think Phil Jackson is soon going to regret, if he doesn't already regret, that decision to take that job as the president of the New York Knicks. So that's one reason. The second reason is I think it would be hard to coach under Phil Jackson with him always, looking over your shoulder. The input that he's going to have, kind of the same as Pat Riley in Miami. I know it's worked out with Eric Spoelstra, but I would rather be coaching in LA, have my feet in the sand on off days, and be dealing with Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss than dealing with Jim Dolan, dealing with Phil Jackson, and dealing with the New York media.
Yeah, well, not like the LA media is any easier. Actually, yeah, New York's worse. You're right. For
Thank
media,
you. That's what I want.
I would still rather coach in New York, but I'm saying you're right. The New York media is worse.
All right. Now moving on to our weekly guest, we have Cam Weiss, who is the agent for Michael Sam. He runs Empire Athletes. Very exciting time for him and his clients. Cam, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Tommy, I know you've been dying to ask a few different things, so I'm going to let you get started because I know you've had some questions.
Yeah, Cam. So basically, how did your company get started? And what was the process like jumping in and getting those first clients once you first established yourself as an NFL agent?
The company started as a conversation that took place about, almost 9 years ago now, between myself and my partner, Joe Barquette. This is the direction that we wanted to go in, so we just kind of kept mindful of that, early in our careers. And for me, in law school and then Joe pursuing his MBA, at that point, I went to intern for another agent, kind of learn the ropes, so to speak, learn, kind of the nitty-gritty, what it took to recruit guys, to be a successful agent. Obviously, you have to, learn the things, about actually negotiating the contract, seeking endorsements, trading cards, all that kind of stuff. So got valuable experience there, and upon graduating law school, Joe and I incorporated. We jumped in. It was really tough to recruit the first year because in the aftermath of the new collective bargaining agreement being negotiated, agents weren't certified and given the green light until about December. And if you know anything about recruiting college football players, or if you have common sense, you're gonna know that these guys aren't going to want to jump into a relationship necessarily when they've known the guy for less than a month. So it's really a weapon to be able to build a relationship over the course of a year or 2 years. And I think that's why we saw such, rewarding outcomes in our second recruiting class.
With this being kind of your first major draft coming up, what's been some of the things you've kind of had to learn on the fly, or just the toughest parts about preparing your players for the draft?
Not so much learning on the fly. Obviously, this Michael Sam experience has been a little bit unique, to put it lightly. But as far as preparing clients for the draft, a lot of it is just expectation management. You got to be honest with your guys, got to be upfront about what you're hearing. Obviously, at the same time, you have to be doing your homework and interacting on the team side without doing so much as to become persona non grata. So it's sort of a delicate balance that you walk between stroking your clients' egos, telling them they're the man, but maybe not as much the man as they thought they were, and then also, gauging that team interest / building it if you can.
And for those guys who do, the later round draft guys, how much recruiting do you have to do on their behalf to the teams? Are you calling GMs and making sure they know about this guy, or do you kind of just let the GMs figure it out on their own?
No, you definitely have to be proactive there. You can only do so much because at the end of the day, they're going to be looking at the film. They're not, signing or drafting a player based on word of mouth. So, you try and put that bug in their ear and you hope that it takes on a life of its own and they end up liking the player. It's always really rewarding when you recruited a guy who was kind of off the radar and then you see some genuine team interest, so you're doing something right. But, the main thing is just, especially with the guys who are going to be priority free agents, is really just finding the right place for them, finding an organization where they can be successful.
Well, you guys do in terms of the homework that you do leading up to the draft, will you guys kind of look into teams that you think are the right fit and then start focusing on trying to kind of, push that player for that team? How much of that kind of stuff goes on, or is it really just kind of random all over the place?
It's really tough when it comes to influencing someone to draft a player, especially if that player is not, like a surefire first-round pick. These guys are, they're pros. They've been doing what they've been doing a lot of times for longer than I've been alive. So you try and find situations where you'd like your guy to be in. Obviously, you're a little bit more aggressive there. But it's a fine balance, because if you become too pushy, then you've kind of burned your bridge a little bit. So with guys that are sure to be drafted or look very good to be drafted, you really want to start just getting a gauge on the genuine interest out there. Figure out which teams are actually super interested in having this guy become part of their team. And then, if you can, you leverage them a little bit against each other.
Definitely. Tommy, go ahead. Sorry.
So, I think this is a question. Obviously, you're Michael Sam's agent as well. During the recruiting process, when did you find out about your situation, and did that affect maybe the way that other agencies looked at him, or how did that affect him personally when he was trying to find an agent?
I found out Mike was gay the day before he signed with us. I had heard rumors, but I'm not the kind of guy who buys into rumors. Like, if he was gay, I feel like he could be able to tell me. He did tell me. It didn't affect the way I recruited him at all. The guy was SEC Defensive Player of the Year last year, so I wanted Michael Sam the football player and Michael Sam the person. And, when he advised me of his situation, I did my best to put him in a situation where he could tell his own story, be honest, and not have to assume like a fake persona just because he's going to play football at the professional level.
Have you, on that note, have you had to deal with weird questions or weird requests from teams after they found out that he was gay, or has it been pretty much smooth? If you could just kind of describe the process, because I'm sure it's been a little unique situation.
No, actually, I think that it sort of worked as planned, knock on wood, but once we came out with it, the questions stopped. It was before he came out that the questions were asked.
Oh, that's interesting. So, how do you think it would have affected his draft stock if he did not come out and there was the rumors, instead of it just being a known fact?
I really think it would have probably been neutral. There was no way he was gonna. He would have been outed if he didn't come out himself. So, it's just a matter of time and a matter of putting ourselves in the driver's seat. I like to think, call me naive, I've been super optimistic throughout this whole process, including when he first came out. I think that the timing of it was great, because now it's sort of allowed it to die down. It's not a huge story anymore, like it was, obviously in February. So, I think that doing it the way we did and showing integrity and honesty and being upfront has helped his draft stock, if anything. And I think that if he had continued to hide it and sort of be evasive or, not be honest with questions directly asked of him or, implied to him, then that itself actually might have hurt his draft stock.
And as far as the draft goes with Michael, what round is he currently projected, and where are you hoping to see him go?
Hoping to see him go number one overall. I'm not, it's tough because the draft's really a crapshoot. You hear things, I hear a range of 3 to 5. Some teams have him graded higher, some teams have him graded lower. All it takes is one, is the saying. And, if a franchise wants to bring Mike on, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go on day 2.
Have you guys seen? After the whole Mike thing happened, have you guys taken on any big clients since then, or what? How are you kind of trying to wait and see approach? Until you get through this draft class to start recruiting hard again. How does that work?
We met with a couple of established NFL players, one of whom only wanted us for his marketing, and it's kind of an interesting situation when you yourself are an agent. You're being hired to not be an agent, but do his marketing, and then have to interact with his agent. So he passed on that opportunity. We met another guy with another very high-profile player who we thought, if we ended up representing him, would sort of conflict with our messaging with Mike. So we didn't really pursue that one too hard. And then we took on a draft eligible player this year, guy who was Senior Bowl combine, a wide receiver from BYU, Cody Hoffman, and that happened in April.
Cam, another thing I just wanted to ask you before we let you go. I know how ruthless the agent business can be sometimes in terms of, getting marquee athletes. I mean, how do you go about consistently having to fight for certain guys, or what kind of strategies do you kind of implement to make sure you're getting the guys you want and holding on to them?
Joe and I are just really aggressive about recruiting the whole country. A lot of agents will limit themselves geographically. Just because traveling is expensive, it's a pain in the ass. We don't do that. We will, if you look at my recruiting class, it's pulling from all four corners of the United States, so including Hawaii. So I think that helps us. I think the fact that Joe and I are young, we're hungry. I think we bring a little bit of a unique perspective to it, and that connects. It's easier for us to connect with the guys because essentially they're in our peer group still. I think that gives us an edge, and ultimately, I'm about relationship building, and I'm trying to build like a genuine, honest relationship with all these guys, and show them what Joe and I are about, and that we want to be the best at what we do, and we expect the same of them.
Definitely, that goes on. Sorry, Tommy, continue.
Oh no, I just said awesome. I just want to thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, Cam, thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure, guys.
Last question, Cam. Who do you got number 1 in the draft?
Yes, it's Clowney.
Michael Sam.
Lock it up. Oh, yeah, besides Michael Sam.
Clowney?
It's Michael Sam, number 1, and then if they switch their minds at the last minute, Jadeveon Clowney.
All right, we got it locked in. Thanks so much for joining us, Cam. For our listeners, remember that's Cam Weiss with Empire Athletes. Where can they follow you? Twitter, Facebook. What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, all over the place. My Twitter handle is Cam Ron Weiss, without the E. Some guy was a first arriver and beat me there, so we're on everything though.
All right, that's Cam Weiss, agent for Michael Sam, Empire Athletes. Thanks so much for joining us, Cam.
Take care, guys.
Bye. All right, just want to thank Cam so much for being on the show with us. Got a little bit left of the show. Very quickly, we'll do our social media moment of the week, and then we'll go to predictions, and we will be out of here. So, social media moment of the week. We don't know if this is true or not, but this is one of the more ridiculous stories I've ever heard. If it wasn't,
the rumors are swirling.
Twitter is out of control right now, which as we discussed before, is not a healthy thing by any means. But supposedly, rumor has it, that's always the worst way to start a sentence. Rumor has it that Paul George had sexual intercourse with none other than Roy Hibbert's fiance, and that's why Roy Hibbert has been playing so poorly in these playoffs. Do you believe it, Tommy? Is this? I mean, we've already heard the Delonte West, LeBron's mom, in rumors.
First of all, I know this isn't gosh, that Delonte West one was so messed up, and man, the thing with rumors is like, who would really make that up?
Yeah, where does it come from?
I don't know. That'd be a pretty crazy thing to just make up on just out of nowhere. It wouldn't shock me. I've been wondering for 2 months what happened to Roy Hibbert, and maybe that's what happened. But if he really did, that is messed up. That is, you're an NBA player. You can get whatever woman you want, and you have to sleep with your teammate's fiance. That makes no sense to me at all.
And I mean, that would really go a long way to show where his priorities are at. If he's supposedly supposed to be, this is supposed to be the year the Pacers could win a championship, and not only is he off getting catfished, sending out dick pics that are getting stuck on the internet, but now if he's in a potential love triangle with Roy Hibbert and his fiance, I mean, that just shows a lot about the person Paul George is.
Hey, can I just use that as a cautionary tale for all the gentlemen listening? Never, ever, 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 ever send a picture of your package to anyone ever. Never. That's all I gotta say.
Is this coming from personal experience?
No, I mean, I've never really understood it. I mean, I've never done it, surprisingly. But I've heard of people who do it. It makes zero sense to me. Have you ever talked to a female who has said to you, this individual sent me a picture of their lower half of the body that was unclothed, and I was very into that, and that worked. I can't think of, I don't know, I've never heard of one instance where that worked. Not one. So, yeah.
That's really what we stand for, is great advice from Tommy Morris. Great recommendations on this show.
You know? If you leave this podcast with one thing, I want that to be the thing you leave with. Never ever send a picture like that.
Thank you for that. On that note, I think we should probably move on to predictions. Last week you did pretty well, Tommy, with I'm going to point it out again, the Trailblazers. Nice pick. Got to give it to you on that one. Who are you going with this week? You got to pick one big pick for these upcoming. Let's hear what you think with all of them, but your one big selection.
My big shocker. You know what? I said it last week. I got to stick with them. Trailblazers over Spurs.
I like it. It's out, it feels right. That's why I'm going with mine as well. Nets over Heat.
No way.
Oh my God, am I gonna do this? If it's
I'm
gonna
gonna say
happen,
7.
If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen in 6.
It's got to happen at Portland.
The way an NBA series works is if you're the underdog, you have to win one of 2 away. You have to win the 2 at home. You lose game 5 and you win game 6. That's the formula to winning a series as an underdog. I'm not saying it always happens like that, but that's the key formula for success for an underdog in an NBA playoff series.
That's a good point. But I think
so. That's why I say 6. And if you think back to the last time Paul Pierce and KG had LeBron in the ropes in 2012, they had a chance in game 6 to send the Heat packing, and they didn't do it. And game 7, they didn't have a chance.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I still think it'll happen in 7, though. And I heard the stat today that 80% of the time that an NBA series goes to game 7, the home team wins. But I'm still sticking with it.
My most interesting series to watch, though, is I'm really interested to see what happens in this Pacers-Wizards series. Between the dominance that John Wall and Bradley Beal showed in the last series and the drama we just talked about with the Pacers, I'm really intrigued by that series.
For me, it's got to be the Clippers and the Thunder. Russell Westbrook was killing the Thunder.
Oh, yeah, you got that prediction pretty well as well. Damn,
my gosh.
How many times did you say well in a sentence,
Yeah, thank you. But no, once he figured out what he was doing, all of a sudden the Thunder was a lot better. So I want to see if he continues to not shoot so much going into this next series, or if he kind of forgets and starts launching threes. After game 5, Trev, he was averaging 7 3-point shot attempts per game, and he was averaging making something like 1.5 of them. Who does that with an MVP on their team? Crazy.
I like it, though. So that's what we'll watch for.
Yeah.
Episode 3. It's in the books.
Felt good.
Tommy Morris. Trevor Brew. Same time next week. We got the time and the place down now, so it's just about the listeners.
Yeah, we got a nice little rhythm going here.
All right, be well, Tommy.
You too.